Welcome back to Book Bree and Novel Nest. I'm Bree, and today we're going to talk about A Complete Unknown and how Hollywood left out one of the greatest musical romances of all time. Yes, we're going to talk about it, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. So grab your drinks, grab your snacks, and let's chat. So I watched A Complete Unknown recently, and I thought it was good, but not great because it was holding back, I felt. In the movie that there are so many good performances, like we have Monica Barbaro, who plays Joan Baez. We have Elle Fanning, who plays Sylvie Rousseau. Good performance there as well. Edward Norton playing Pete Seeger. There are strong performances, and I think Timothée Chalamet does a good job at portraying young Bob Dylan, but I think the fabric of the whole movie is lacking its rich history of that time. All of his albums dealing with what's going on with him, what's of the times. That's what the movie needed, and that's what it was lacking. So there were two things that the film did that held it back from being great. Number one, too many producers. On this film alone, there are 8 producers.
The professionals would like to know what the plan is.
I'm a professional too, pal.
You're not, please. You work at a bar. It's a whole different thing. I respect you. Just please.
I feel like there was too many production visions going on at the same time, and they were all excited about this project, but then it didn't have a clear idea of what it wanted to be. And when that happens, tea break. When that happens, I feel like the storyline doesn't get a chance to grow, especially when you're doing a book adaptation. Sometimes you'll have to take liberties with what you're given, especially when you have a bunch of historical context around the time that this is going on. And that Bob Dylan himself was involved in a lot of the social change and movement during that time. So that's where you see in the film that it exists, but we don't really get to see anything about it. They tell us a lot about what's going on, but don't really show us a lot what's going on. So that brings us up to our second point, where that's where the film is limiting itself by telling us the history, but not showing us the history. So you have the film starting at a great trajectory of telling the story of young Bob Dylan and showing his relationships and friendships along the way. But then it starts to seem that there is not so much to draw from because you haven't given more context of what's going on throughout this period of time. And you have the women in his life like Sylvie Rousseau and Joan Baez, and they're kind of almost put to the side as just his love interest. And there is so much more than that, where I feel like they were showing Sylvie being an artist. They kind of show bits and pieces of that, but not really show us more, of what's going on in her life. And with Joan Baez, they start out really strong by showing the development of her performing and connecting with audiences, and Bob seeing that and then forming a relationship. But then she kind of draws back in the film by it just being her and Bob's relationship. And there's so much more that Joan did other than have a relationship with Bob and perform with him. So we're gonna talk about the historical context that was majorly left out of this movie. So let's start out with his early days, shall we? Okay, so back in the early 1950s, Bob Dylan would listen to Hank Williams and Johnny Ray on the radio on the show The Grand Ole Opry. He even had other bands he formed early in school, one of them being, what was it called? Danny and the Juniors. Isn't that cute? Danny and the Juniors, Rock and Roll is Here to Stay. And they would perform covers of Little Richard and Elvis. So that's how you could have started the film. Like, imagine that you are, seeking all this courage and bravery to perform in front of your peers. Like, this is pretty big. And to propel him to get him to where he is in 1961, where he's going to New York and performing into different clubs. Like, we gotta understand that where this is all coming from. And he just didn't, you know, become Bob Dylan like out of nowhere. Like, this started very early. This is where he started to get inspired by all these different, you know, sounds of music. And not only did it influence him by folk music with Woody Guthrie, which they do show in the movie, and his inspiration, how much that meant to him, and him going to visit him and share music with him, building that sense of community with music, which they did really well. But with everything else within the rock and roll sphere, they showed Johnny Cash, but they were more just telling us like that he liked Hank Williams and he liked, you know, Johnny Ray. But there was nothing that came across to us that we were forming a connection with him in rock and roll, which is going to be majorly stand out at the end of the film. Now we're getting to my favorite part about this story. Y'all, how Mavis Staples met Bob Dylan and how they had the cutest romance ever. Y'all, I didn't know about this and I'm like, what? Mavis Staples, the Mavis Staples.
She's an icon, she's a legend, and she is the moment. Now come on now.
Okay, so back in the day, y'all, back in the day, in 1956, there was this song called Uncloudy Day by the Staple Singers. And guess who's listening in and saying, getting inspiration, not only listening to Hank Williams and Johnny Ray and Little Richard and things, but it's Bob Dylan. And he's like, okay, I'm vibing with this. I really like this music. You know, I'm wondering who's singing. And then I got some quotes here from Bob Dylan here saying about this song and how he was inspired, okay? So this was in, I think, an interview in 2015. And Bob said, for Uncloudy Day, it was the most mysterious thing I'd ever heard. I think about them even at my school desk. Mavis looked to be about the same age as me in her picture. Okay, this is on the cover of Uncloudy Day. Like, he's beginning to form like a little crush. She's so cute. Her singing just knocked me out. Y'all.
How rude of me. I haven't given you enough time to freak out yet. You may do so now.
Now wait a minute. Oh my God. She knocked him off his feet. Like oh my goodness. Like I have to read the rest of the statement, Bree. Okay, and Mavis was a great singer, deep and mysterious, and even at a young age, I felt that life itself was a mystery. So, okay, they didn't even know each other. Okay, she's off doing her music with her family, and the Staple Singers mainly were singing gospel at the time, and Bob was just up and coming. He was like trying to figure out, how do I put these songs out and let people connect with them. Okay, so a couple years go by and we get to the year 1962. Guess what they met on? A TV show. Not The Bachelor and not The Bachelorette. So he finally gets to meet his crush in person. And they were on the show, this is in 1962, called The Brothers Four. And basically they were showing different musical acts that would come up on there, especially up and coming singers or singers that were doing really well on the radio. And that's where they met. So after the show, all right, come closer, they started dating. Yep, so you have Mavis Staples and Bob Dylan dating. So cute, okay, so cute. And they fell in love. I love love. This is so cute. Y'all don't even know.
It's so beautiful.
Like, I need, this is like a rom drama. I need this rom drama immediately, okay? If you want to write this, okay, let me know, or directors, I don't know, whoever's gonna be on this project, but we need to tell the Mavis Staples story, okay? And this needs to be a part of the story, okay? Yes, we do need that, okay? And they fell in love, and then shortly after, Bob asks Mavis to marry him. Yes, y'all, he proposed. He wanted to put a ring on it, like, and then later on, unfortunately, she said no because they were too young. And I understand that there was a lot of things, you know, going on at the time, and yeah, marriage, you know, is a lot. So you would think they parted ways, but no, they still remain friends to this day. Y'all, it's giving George and Charlotte. That's what it's giving to me. Like the love, like I can't even.
Buddy, we're gonna take a little break. You having memory overload here.
Well, no, I got it. I got all the answers.
Y'all think I'm playing. Y'all think I'm playing. No, I found, okay, this interview on NPR. This is from 2017. And this is her recounting that they went on tour together in 2016. Because yes, he's like, you know what? I'm going on tour. I think this was the Fallen Angels. Yeah, the Fallen Angels tour. And he's like, I want Mavis on tour with me. And she's like, okay, let's go. So this is her recounting how they met up in 2016 for this tour. Okay, so Mavis says, well, the first thing I said, oh, Bobby. She calls him Bobby. Okay. I said, I've been wanting to see you. I've been missing you. He said to her, well, if you married me, you could have seen me every day. Oh my goodness, y'all.
That was, of course, before I found out that you do not want to be married to me.
I did not say that.
Oh, you did.
I did not.
You did?
It is not.
Y'all don't even know. Y'all don't even know. See, this is what the things we're missing out, you know, from the movie. They didn't have, you know, time to add, you know, all the years in history of Bob Dylan. But, you know, all the things of this young, cute relationship and what's going on now today. And the Mavis Staples, like, come on, Holly, come on. Get it together. So also in this interview with Peter Sagal, they're talking about the proposal, the relationship, all those things. So if you want, you know, listen more about that, go to NPR, okay? They got the tea, they got everything, okay? But he's saying, so we're about, oh, I don't know, 50 years from that. Was the magic between you still there? Guess what Mavis said? Yeah, one word, the magic. Y'all, it's giving George and Charlotte vibes. I don't know what to tell you. This is crazy. All right, I digress. I'm a romance girly. So when I heard this, I was like, oh my goodness, how would you leave that out of the movie? Okay.
I never thought of that.
Not only did they leave out one of the greatest romances in this movie, they also left out a very crucial thing, which is, say it with me, the civil rights movement.
I said it. And I meant it!
Now they did show Bob Dylan on the March on Washington, and every once in a while they will talk about social injustices and what was going on at the time. They also mentioned Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., but it was very surface. There was nothing that the movie felt that it needed to talk more about this history, and that's a problem because most of his songs during that time were songs for protest, were civil rights anthems. And if you included people like Mavis Staples, you were able to talk about the Staples Singers and how her father was good friends with Martin Luther King Jr. And they would go and sing at different protests and speeches because they knew how crucial it was to get people together, to build a community, to be uplifted in such a daunting time. And that is what the movie is lacking. Like, this happened. I don't understand why you're not including it. So a lot of the music at that time was tied to the civil rights movement. And that's what was left out in a lot of stories, including Joan Baez. Joan Baez had a lot of songs talking about social injustice and social causes. And she faced a lot of discrimination and prejudice because of her Mexican heritage. So when she was performing on tour at different schools, she would not perform at segregated schools. She took a stand and said, nope, I'm not gonna do that. And if she was in the South performing at different schools, she would only perform at Black schools. Why wasn't this like at least a little montage of something to show us like what was going on at that time for each and every character in this movie? Because these are real people. This is not just a made-up story. This actually happened. And you were kind of, even though she was performing and you got to see her relationship with Bob, you're basically just reducing her to a love interest. No, like there's so much more dimension to her, and that's not right. We have to do better, Hollywood. We have to do better.
I think I've made my feelings clear.
So when I got to the final act of the movie, I felt kind of lost because I knew something was missing, and it was the civil rights movement. And it wasn't just that he was having rock and roll and, you know, electric instruments into his songs to provide such controversy at this music festival, the Newport Music Festival, that was mainly focused on folk music. They were talking about how these songs were a protest. And this is what enraged people. Like, they were like throwing things up at the stage. They were booing like, how could you, you know, this ain't it, like, ah. This isn't just about electrical instruments, people. He was bringing rock and roll into this space. And what does rock and roll represent? Who established and really created rock and roll? Black people. We're talking Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Sister Rosetta Tharpe. This is what caused people not to vibe with this. They were like, no, we don't want change. And they weren't talking about it. But that's what was causing a disturbance. And this is why Bob Dylan wanted to present those songs at that festival as a sign of protest. And that's what they left out of the movie. They even had Odetta, the voice of the civil rights movement. She was like right like on the sides of the stage. Like, they were like, oh, you know, I'm sorry, Odetta. What? You could have also included her in this as well. Like, and how her responses to what was going on and her music of the time and maybe meeting with Bob Dylan. Like, you have to expand when you're talking about real people and portraying real people. You have to connect to the history that they've established, because if you don't, then you're gonna lose connection with the audience, and that's where it missed the mark. That's where the difference between good and great. You can have a great soundtrack and cinematography and great acting, but if you don't include the real history of what ties us all together, then you're missing the point. So it was still good, but that's the reason that it did not stand out to me. So let me know in the comments down below what you think, and I hope you have a comfy and cozy rest of your day. Bye.